Former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens has called for the repeal of the Second Amendment. The only problem is there is no gun problem in America. Conservatives keep defending their Second Amendment rights on the left's terms, but even a cursory look at the numbers shows America does not have a gun problem. We will analyze. Then, on this day in history, in 1973, Marlon Brando ruins Hollywood. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. A lot to get to today, a lot to talk about, and I'll start out on a nice note. At least they're honest. At least they're honest. At least John Paul Stevens, former Justice of the Supreme Court, is finally being honest and not saying we need to ban this sort of exercise, and we will take a look at what would happen. But before we do that, we got to make a little bit of money. We have to thank a sponsor to the show, a wonderful sponsor, Lending Club. This is a really great service that is available to you. Lending Club gives you access to low-rate loans of up to $40,000 for almost any purpose. You can take control of your debt, finance a major purchase, or finally make those home improvements. Now, you can't just go and run away and just go to Vegas and drink yourself into a stupor. That's probably not, but there are a lot of uses. Everybody could use a little bit of money, and sometimes you're just a little bit tight. You need a little loan to get you through. Lending Club is a great way to do it. It's so 21st century. It is easier than going to a bank. It offers lower rates than high-interest credit cards. A lot of people I notice, they're in a pinch, they need money at a particular time, and they'll use credit cards and pay these exorbitant fees. Don't do that. There are smarter options available to you. Do not just swipe. Just go to lendingclub.com, enter how much money you need, and see if you're approved within minutes. You can pick the offer that's right for you, and the money can be in your account in just a matter of days. It is that simple. For more than 10 years, Lending Club has helped millions of people with over $31 billion in loans. Take charge of your finances today with Lending Club. This is a great service. It's very easy. You know, money is fungible, and sometimes you need a little bit more money than at other times. Don't be foolish. You can use money to get you through in a pinch. Go to lendingclub.com/Knowles, Knowles, and make sure that when you need that money in a pinch, you don't do it in a very expensive way. You do it in an easy way with the lowest rates possible. Go to lendingclub.com/Knowles, Knowles, to check your rate for free. It will not impact your credit score. That is lendingclub.com/Knowles, lendingclub.com/Knowles. There are all these sometimes little repairs. For a period when I was in my teens, I owned a house, and everything seemed to happen at once. The roof would break, and the heater needed to be fixed, and this and that. They'll help you get through, credit card debt. Sometimes you want to deal with that long overdue vacation. There's so much you could do with just a little bit of money. You can start now at lendingclub.com/Knowles, Knowles. All loans made by WebBank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Okay, let's get into this. Let's get into the guns. We were talking about guns, we're talking about money, all very important things to the American dream. So, John Paul Stevens has called to repeal the Second Amendment. A few observations right off the bat. John Paul Stevens is a Republican. This isn't some lefty judge. I mean, I guess obviously he is a lefty judge, but he's a Republican. He was nominated for the Supreme Court by President Gerald Ford. He was nominated for the appellate court by Richard Nixon. He isn't a Democrat. He's a Republican, but obviously he's not a conservative. He's not an originalist, certainly to say. There's a big difference here between Republicans and conservatives. Not all Republicans are conservatives or originalists or defend our Constitution. This calls to mind a second thing. This op-ed alone that he published in the New York Times calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment should remind us all, thank God Donald Trump won the presidency instead of Hillary Clinton. Thank God. I know we're all very upset about this budget. It's a terrible budget. We say he's not a conservative anymore. Hillary Clinton was running. She was campaigning on gutting the Second Amendment. And the thing they all used to do, they would say, look, I defend the Second. I don't want to repeal the Second Amendment. I just wanna, but I just wanna. It's very clear they're laying their cards on the table. Other people have called for this too. The so-called conservative commentator Bret Stephens has called to repeal the Second Amendment. Many other people have as well. It is a very good thing that Donald Trump won that election, because this would be on the chopping block. Hillary would have appointed left-wing justices, or apparently even moderate Republican justices, and they would have gutted this thing. There is a call among the political class, not among the people. The American people oppose gun control, but among the political class, there is a call to gut this very basic, constitutionally protected civil right. Here's what Stevens wrote in the New York Times. Rarely in my lifetime have I seen the type of civic engagement school children and their supporters demonstrated in Washington and other major cities around the country this past Saturday. These demonstrations demand our respect. They reveal the broad public support for legislation to minimize the risk of mass killings of school children and others in our society. I don't know where to begin dismantling. Just about everything he just said is not true. It is unreal. He said, rarely in my lifetime have I seen this type of civic engagement school children have demonstrated. Maybe that should tell you something. Maybe it should tell you something that this entire movement is being led by 11-year-olds. They're literally 11-year-olds giving speeches. What are 11-year-olds known for? Are they known for their vast knowledge? Is that something? No. They're students because they have to learn. They don't know anything. That's fine. We were all students once, but they don't know anything. Perhaps they shouldn't be leading this movement. Then he says, these demonstrations demand our respect. No, they don't. They don't demand our respect. This whole thing was organized out of Hollywood. It was, I believe, Justin Bieber's manager, I forget his name, and George Clooney funded this thing to the hilt. That producer and manager's wife was the one running it and collecting donations and managing the whole thing. These don't just happen. When there are massive nationwide protests and big PSAs and campaigns and a lot of money flowing in, usually you can tell that's not coming from 16-year-olds. 16-year-olds don't have a lot of clout or money, but Twitter is verifying them. This is true collusion. This is collusion among the activist forces of the left to use these school kids like little puppets. There was that meme going around of David Hogg as a little puppet on the hand of CNN. And CNN says, so David, should we repeal the Second Amendment? Yes, we should repeal the Second Amendment. That is what's going on. And by the way, this is an important message for everybody. Follow the memes. This came to me last night when I was giving the talk at Yeshiva. There are all these memes just making fun of David Hogg. Follow the memes. It shows you what's really happening in the culture, the undercurrents of the culture. Not the things that are on the TV or on the news or in movies, but the undercurrents of what's happening in the actual popular culture. The American people do not support this, and they certainly don't demand our respect. They're trying to rob us of our constitutionally protected civil rights. They are not passionate, wonderful believers in the American dream. They are dismantlers of the American dream. They're arrogant, ignorant dismantlers of the American dream. We shouldn't give them any attention. We shouldn't give them any praise. He then goes on and says these demonstrations reveal the broad public support for legislation to minimize the risk of mass killings of school children and others in our society. This has two major errors here. First of all, what he's implying is gun control. What he's really saying is broad public support to get rid of guns, ultimately to repeal the Second Amendment. That does not exist. Every time there's a very public and reported on shooting event, then support for gun control jumps up, and then shortly thereafter it drops right back down. The majority of Americans, broadly, do not support gun control. But then look at how he phrases it. He says, legislation to minimize the risk of mass killings of school children, as though someone opposes that. Who opposes legislation to minimize the risk of slaughtering school children? Nobody does. But as Marco Rubio pointed out a few years ago, there isn't any legislation that has been proposed that would have prevented these shootings. There isn't one piece. There are tens of thousands of gun control laws on the books. The federal government has failed to enforce those laws and has failed to do its job many times. So we should give it more power. Is that the idea? Gun confiscation does not work. People don't give away their guns. Didn't happen in Connecticut. Didn't happen in Australia. So much wrong about what he's saying. Now, ultimately, he is putting forth this idea that forget all of the gun control. You're right about the gun control. That won't work, which is why we need to repeal the Second Amendment. This is how he goes on in the column. That support is a clear sign to lawmakers to enact legislation prohibiting civilian ownership of semi-automatic weapons, increasing the minimum age to buy a gun from 18 to 21 years old, and establishing more comprehensive background checks on all purchasers of firearms. But the demonstrators should seek more effective and more lasting reform. They should demand a repeal of the Second Amendment. To that I say, I mean, he's making a lot of suppositions that aren't true, such as the broad American support for gun control that doesn't exist. But To this I say, at least he's honest. At least John Paul Stevens is being honest. The left used to hide this. They used to be buttheads. They were the buttheads. I support the Second Amendment, but I support free speech. Look, I support free speech, but and then whatever they say just contradicts what they previously said, because buts negate sentences. Oh no, I support the Second Amendment. I just want to gut the Second Amendment. Here is Hillary Clinton exemplifying this tactic.
When he's gotten a tough question from a reporter, when he's challenged in a debate, when he sees a protester at a rally. Imagine, if you dare, imagine him in the Oval Office facing a real crisis. A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
It's a lot of Hillary. That's long Hillary. She did the, look, I don't want to take away your Second Amendments. That's what she says. I don't want to take away your Second Amendment, but I don't want people to do this. She did the same thing with abortion. We have to get to that in 1 second, but before we do that, we have to thank another sponsor. And this sponsor, this is Providential, as frequently is the case. A Providential sponsor that let me ask you this. How great would it be if when you went on a business trip, you got the kind of support that astronauts get when they go on a business trip up to outer space, having a whole team of people, a mission control, making sure that your business trip goes smoothly. Now, as you know, fortunately, we have Upside.com. Upside is a mission control for your business trip. I think if we didn't have that, probably, I'm on a trip right now. I'm giving these speeches in New York. If we didn't have Upside.com, then I think probably it would just be like me telephoning sweet little Elise in the middle of the night saying, hey, all my flights are canceled. Mac, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything from over here, Mac. You need a team of people to support you. So Upside will be your mission control. They will look out for you every step of the way. They will handle any problem that might pop up. They have a team of specialists working 24/7 to make sure your flight, your hotel, and your car rental all go off without a hitch. I have all of these things on this trip, and I hope they go off without a hitch. But if they don't, luckily, there's a team of specialists who can fix that. Upside.com monitors your trip around the clock, proactively keeping you posted on everything from if it's going to rain, if there are alternate flights home, in case you want to squeeze in one more meeting, or in my case, one more round of drinks at every single bar in New York. If you wanted to, look, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes it's very important to business to go around one more time to every single bar in Manhattan. If you need to do that, you need someone to look for alternate flights home. Have you ever experienced that level before on a business trip? Of course you haven't. Not until you've used Upside. Trust me, once you've experienced a committed team looking after every detail of your trip, you can never go back. That's actually, I think, why Ben is having me use Upside, is so that I never come back. That I think he wants there to be a team that keeps me in New York. They say, oh no, that's okay, one more meeting is fine. It's a really wonderful service. For easy booking, competitive prices, and a team that always has your back, go to upside.com/covfefe. C-O-V-F-E-F-E. It will add a lot of covfefe to your business trip. Book your next business trip. Sign up today for your free account and get a free pair of Bose headphones on your first business trip. Those are very nice. Those are nicer than these little earbuds that they give me at the Daily Wire. They're really good. Don't say I never did nothing for you. Upside.com/covfefe, C-O-V-F-E-F-E. There's a $600 minimum purchase required within 90 days. See site for complete details. There always these kind of disclaimers, but it's a really great service. You're really going to enjoy it, and you get some free headphones. That's pretty cool. Okay, Hillary did this same tactic, the butt tactic. I don't want to take away your Second Amendment. She did the same thing with abortion. She said that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And this never made any sense, of course. If abortion is morally similar to murder, then it shouldn't be legal. And if abortion is just a procedure, it's just like removing a zit or something, a clump of cells, then it shouldn't be rare. Why should it be rare? It doesn't have, either it has moral weight or it doesn't have moral weight, but you can't have it both ways. That is what the left has tried to do on guns for years and years and years. They've said, look, I totally support the individual right to keep and bear weapons that can blow people's heads off. I respect that constitutional right, but you shouldn't. But you shouldn't. That's what they say. Because you can't have it both ways. Either you believe that this is a right that people ought to have and that ought to be recognized, or it makes no sense. If you don't believe that ultimately a free people needs the right to arm themselves against a government that could turn tyrannical, as liberal democratic governments have done many, many times over the last 2 centuries, if you either you believe that they need that right, or it is insane to let people have guns. If you don't think that that's the point, then you're going to allow people to have these killing machines just to go duck hunting or something? Of course not. It is a right. You have to deal honestly with it and with some philosophical clarity. Finally, it seems people are doing that. The alleged comedian Michael Ian Black, he's not a butthead. He's not playing this just game. He just called to repeal the Second Amendment. He tweeted, quote, "I'll say it. Assault weapons aren't the problem, handguns are the problem. By all means, ban AR-15s and the like, but handguns kill far more people. The solution is to repeal and replace the Second Amendment. Make gun ownership a privilege, not a right. Yes, having the ready ability to take someone's life is dominion over that person. Gun ownership should be viewed as slavery by another name." At least he's honest. He's completely wrong, but at least he's honest. It is true, handguns are involved in many more deaths than assault weapons or whatever made-up scare name the left comes up with. They are involved in many more. Now, of course, 2/3 of the time, those are suicides of middle-aged men, and for the remainder in major cities, 80% are involved in gang crime, inter-gang crime. But he makes a good point. Banning the AR-15 won't do anything. Here is David Hogg at the March for Our Lives over the weekend.
I'm going to start off by putting this price tag right here as a reminder for you guys to know how much Marco Rubio took for every student's life in Florida. $1.05. Okay. The cold grasp of corruption shackles the District of Columbia. The winter is over. Change is here. The sun shines on a new day, and the day is ours. Inaction is no longer safe, and to that we say, no more. 96 people die every day from guns in our country, yet most representatives have no public stance on guns. And to that, we say, no more.
To David Hogg, I say, no more. I agree with you, David Hogg. No more. I can't take it anymore. That is like the cringiest thing ever. I think when he gets up there, he thinks he's Martin Luther King. He is getting, he says, oh, this is going to be my phrase. This is, okay, no more. Yes, to that I say, like, listen, I didn't know Martin Luther King. You are no Martin Luther King. Here's the big difference. Martin Luther King wanted to defend American civil rights, and David Hogg wants to deny American civil rights. That's the subtle difference. I suppose there are other differences too. But you see, I've been to the mountaintop, Martin Luther King. Well, we say no more, no more. You can't have your rights anymore. I was asked a question last night during the Q&A at Yeshiva University. And this was a conservative guy who I take it watches the show. And he asked a question that I think a lot of young conservatives are wondering, and they kind of get sucked into this. They say, don't we have to do something? We have to do something. We see these images of dead children on TV. Oh, we have to do something. There's a problem. I can see it with my own eyes, and we have to do something. Can't we just compromise? Isn't it a crisis? Isn't it like, how do you? And there's this anxiety that builds that the media has constructed. This anxiety of, oh gosh, we can't, if we don't, do we defend the status quo? The end of his question, he said, or do you think the status quo is just fine? I don't think the status quo is just fine. I think the status quo is not very good. I think the problem with the status quo is we have too many gun control laws on the books. We have far too many tens of thousands of gun control laws on the books. There are other problems as well, which influence these killings and these shootings, but no, we should. The problem with the status quo is not that there are not enough gun control laws in the books. The problem is that there are too many, because the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and it's infringed on a lot. Conservatives should not bring a knife to leftists' gunfights. Actually, probably they should bring a knife, because statistically speaking, knives are much more likely to kill you than assault weapons or rifles of any kind. So maybe we should bring those assault knives. But we shouldn't bring a knife. Broadly speaking, we shouldn't bring a knife to the leftists' fight over guns. There is no gun problem in America. Their premise, is that there is a major gun problem right now. It is escalating. It is reaching a fever pitch. Their premise is total BS. It is not true. There is less of a gun problem now than there has ever been in American history. There are many other problems. There are problems of criminality. There are problems of certain punishment, not punishing people in a certain way. There are problems of not having the facilities to deal with deranged people and with lunatics. Those are plenty. There are plenty of those problems. There's a hollowing out of the culture. There are problems of despair. There are problems of suicide. There are problems of irreligiosity, which contributes to all of that. There is not a gun problem in America, and we shouldn't compromise on anything. Why should we compromise? They used to be like screaming little children on this issue. Now they actually are screaming children. We talk a lot on this show about the difference between the signifier and the signified, the metaphysical and the physical. They have become the metaphor. They are actually just screaming 11-year-olds and David Hogg and shrieking at you without knowing anything. Why would we compromise on that? Say, well, look, they want this, and we want to defend our civil rights. They want to take away all of our civil rights, and we want to defend our civil rights, so let's only take away some of our civil rights. No, why would we do that? Especially when all of their premises, all of the statistics they're citing aren't true. Let's just go through some of the numbers here to explain how there is not a gun problem in America. In 1980, there were 10.8 willful killings per 100,000 people. Within 13 years, that number dropped to 7 homicides by firearm for every 100,000 Americans. By 2013, that figure dropped again by 50%. Violent crime has decreased by 49% since 1991. There was a high mark in 1980. It's been declining for decades since. The overall homicide rate is way down since 1980. In 1980, 10.2 people were murdered per 100,000 Americans. By 2014, that number had fallen to 4.5 people per 100,000 Americans. Wherever you look, some statistics, they vary a little bit. You can see 10.8, you can see 10.2, but they do agree on this major trend that has gone down. And I know, here's what the lefties are going to say. Well, we had a federal assault weapons ban. That's what did it. And I'm going to explain to you why that is absolute bunk and nonsense. Plus, we also have to explain how Marlon Brando destroyed Hollywood, single-handedly destroyed Hollywood on this day in history, and actually destroyed acting. Ironically, we'll go into that too. I want to tell you about all of that, but if you're not on dailywire.com, I can't. My hands are tied. What do you want me to do? If you go to dailywire.com, you'll get me, you'll get the Andrew Klavan Show, you'll get the Ben Shapiro Show. You can ask questions in the mailbag, and the mailbag's coming up on Thursday, so make sure to get your questions in. Everybody can watch, but only subscribers can ask the questions. Again, I know none of that matters, but you can get the most important vessel of all, the Leftist Tears tumbler. Now, I'm on the road. I didn't want to take so valuable a possession with me on the road lest something happen. It would probably be confiscated at TSA as a weapon of mass destruction or as a way to fight weapons of mass destruction. So I have to keep my salty Leftist Tears in this vessel. Now, that's fine, but here, when I drink it, it's still salty, so that's good. I mean, they're always delicious. It's room temperature. I like my salty Leftist Tears either hot or cold. Room temperature? Why would I don't even know if this is safe. And, we're broadcasting from National Review. I want to thank my friends at National Review for having me. I don't know what sort of radiation they're being subjected to right now or that I'm being subjected to. Don't put yourself at risk like I'm putting myself at risk. Go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back.